We're expecting a shutdown showdown in just a few hours.
The sticking point is funding for the wall. The president wants $5 billion. Democrats are reportedly offering $1.3 billion.
He won the election largely on this issue, to secure our border, which is one of the fundamental things a government is supposed to do.
Google CEO finally heading to the hot seat today on Capitol Hill.
For the future of our democracy, this is the issue of the day. If there is any bias, we have to be concerned, and they're just not transparent.
New contenders emerge in President Trump's hunt for a new chief of staff.
At the end of the day, it's who's going to serve him best and serve this country best.
And the person selected to host next year's Academy Awards may go to no one. The Academy is scrambling to find somebody.
Travelers stopping to salute and sing the national anthem to honor children whose parents died in combat. Did get dressed. Hey, by the way, good news. I know the president is looking for a new chief of staff. There's a solution. Stephen Colbert last night said he would throw his hat in the ring and said, I would like to be considered because if I were chief of staff, that would be fun.
Nice. All right.
Right. If there's anybody that's more ill-suited than Stephen Colbert to be President Trump's chief of staff, I don't know who it might be. Maybe Robert Mueller.
Just saying.
He is from South Carolina.
Right. That's true. Good point.
Produces some good people.
Who voted for South Carolina, for the most part, voted for President Trump.
There you go. In the meantime, speaking of the chief of staff, a live look at the White House right there, where we are expecting a special meeting today in the Oval Office. It will be between the president and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer.
All right, President Trump sitting down with Democratic leaders, Chuck and Nancy, to talk border security and a wall as they work to reach a budget deal by the 21st.
I bet they're going to have a lot of fun together. Griff Jenkins is live in Washington with what we can expect, Griff. What do they call it? The shutdown showdown?
Shutdown, showdown. I think you're going to be saying that quite a lot. Look, the meeting is less than 4 hours away, and the president has been tweeting in the last hour, a series of tweets, 5 of them actually. Here's one of them. He says, I look forward to my meeting with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. In 2006, Democrats voted for a wall, and they were right to do so. Today, they no longer want border security. They will fight it at all costs, and Nancy must get votes for Speaker. But the wall will get built. Problem is, they're stuck on funding for a wall. The president wants $5 billion. Democrats are offering $1.3 billion, same as last year's budget. But that's less than $1.6 billion that the Senate already agreed upon for this year. And the deadline, 10 days away. Now, Pelosi and Schumer issued this joint statement yesterday saying this holiday season, the president knows full well that his wall proposal does not have the votes to pass the House and Senate and should not be an obstacle to a bipartisan agreement. However, House Majority Whip Steve Scalise warns Democrats they will take the blame for a shutdown.
The number's $5 billion. If there's a better way to get there than what the president's laid out, then they need to come with an alternative. They can't just come and say they want to shut the government down for no reason because they don't want border security. They'll lose that argument with the American people.
Now, guys, the meeting starts at 11:30, but it is hard to see where they find room to maneuver because they're miles apart, and Pelosi does have that additional pressure because the speaker's vote will not be until after the new year. Guys?
All right, Griff, thank you very much. So the president has tweeted out 4 different tweets. One of the other things, just to reiterate, the last tweet he sent was, if the Democrats do not give us the votes to secure our country, the military will build the remaining sections of the wall. They know how important it is. We've heard that suggestion. The military could get involved. Also, would they use Pentagon money? There's a lot of that. Not exactly spelled out in that tweet.
He's asking for even more Pentagon money. This year for I think it's up to $760 billion he wants to ask. But I'm just wondering, is that a legitimate threat? We should look into that, because if the president can get the military to build a wall, then that would be the leverage. Say you rather build a wall with a mix of fence, or would you rather just have the military?
It's a national security issue in his mind.
Well, and Democrats are saying we don't want him to build the wall, but we'll give you the money for a fence. What's the difference in a fence and a wall? Nancy Pelosi says a wall is immoral, but a fence is not. They're okay with a fence.
Well,
I mean, it's still a barrier if she's worried about what it looks like to the folks over in Mexico, to the migrants that are coming up. if she's worried about that, I don't understand why one's
no
immoral
logic
and
to
one's
it.
not.
It's pure
I'm
politics.
telling you, they just don't want this president to have a check mark next to the wall. This is what he ran on. This is why people went to the polls to vote for him. And there are consequences for your elections.
Well, it's been a political issue betwixt both of the political parties for a very long time. Brian was talking to Michael Anton, who's one of the president's former national security advisors. And
Were you guys listening?
We weren't, so we're going to run a soundbite that you flagged, said this would be very impactful because this does lay out where he shows the politics involved in immigration.
All right, so we're going to listen now.
Trump administration stood up for our borders, stood up for the American people, the existing citizenry of the United States, and I'm grateful for that. Democratic leadership knows that border security doesn't benefit Democratic politics, so I think they're going to be tough on this. They're going to hold firm. They don't want a wall. They don't want greater security, and they really don't care about the consequences because for them, the consequence is the more immigrants come in, the more demographic change there is in the United States of America, the more that benefits Democratic politicians, and that's what they care about the most.
Well, that's his point of view, but there are a number of Democrats who say, look, we like the way it is right now. We like the whole system where if you are captured crossing into the country illegally, you will be adjudicated eventually. It's so-called a catch and release, but we do know that oftentimes when people are arrested in order to come back, they don't show.
All right.
Which has been a problem.
Yeah, catch and release is a problem. The chain migration is a problem. The lottery is a problem. At different times, Harry Reid, Chuck Schumer, all these guys have come out against it. But now in 2018, it looks too much like a win for the president. That's the pure politics of it, and it's relatively sad. Meanwhile, at 6 minutes after the hour, let's talk a little entertainment because Kevin Hart, as you know, because of Twitter tweets he made in 2010 and was asked to apologize within 24 hours by the Oscars, he said no. He says, I've grown as a person. I already apologized once. I'm not going to keep doing it. And then they say, look back. People go to bat for Kevin Hart and say, listen, can any comedian withstand this type of scrutiny? Any of these background checks? Can anyone host this thing? Think about it in the past. Johnny Carson, David Letterman, Billy Crystal. They all hosted this thing. It was a great gig. It was a career-defining gig. What has happened to the Oscars?
Well, that was before social media and whatnot. And now the Oscars, which are going to be held on February 24th, they, according to Variety, are exploring all the options to have a different kind of host. Maybe it's not one person. Maybe it's a whole bunch of people. Maybe a Saturday Night Live style where one person would introduce. They're looking for great big movie and television stars to introduce various awards and then maybe have some buzzy person, as they describe it, throw to a commercial.
Or Ruth Buzzy.
Well, if y'all ever watch award shows, and I know most people don't because they get too political now and they're always one-sided, but if you do watch it, do you watch it? I watch to see who wins. I want to know which musician's winning, what movie's winning. I don't watch for the host. So
you know what?
I'm okay with there not being a host.
Given the fact that all the award shows have pre-award show red carpet things where they just talk about the clothes people are wearing, I think a lot of people are interested in what people are wearing and what they're saying before they go inside.
The last one I watched, cover to cover, was when Chariots of Fire was the movie of the year. Right. It was shocking because they always ran in slow motion.
They did. That was the way it worked out.
So it's just crazy where we're at right now. And you factor that with the Heisman Trophy winner, who's now 21 years old, and they look back and find out some tweets he made when he was 15. He had to apologize on a Sunday after winning on Saturday. Can anyone's life live up to this type of scrutiny?
Pat Sajak from Wheel of Fortune, he weighed in on Twitter. This is what he says. He says, here's a quick fix for the Academy Awards show. Expand it to 2 nights. On the first night, give out awards and celebrate the history and wonder of movies. On the second night, hold your political rally.
That's funny. I'd like to buy a vowel. We asked you what you thought. We got a tweet from James. He said, and give all the profits, if any, to disabled veterans or fire victims. No gifts for the actors.
I like it.
All right, Roland says this, very simple. Mail in the Oscars, it's a waste of time. Well, a lot of people like seeing it. I mean, it still gets millions. You just mail
Mike
it.
says, I'll host the Oscar. He says, I'll host the Oscars. I'm a highly decorated Navy chief from Desert Storm. I'm conservative, but I know how to play nice. That is a great idea. We should get our military men and women to host the Oscars.
Good.
I love that.
Right. Well,
I think
it's
you're not
great.
very convincing.
No,
right?
I mean, but there's so. if they were giving out awards for the military, they should host. But this is entertainment. I think entertainers should be able to host their own award show. I just don't know if anybody wants to put up this type of scrutiny where you lose sponsorship or support or a movie role if you say something wrong or you tweeted something that you'd like to have back. Remember, when you talk about, I'm going to save that thought.
Okay.
Yeah, I could just see this like going, what I was going to say. Yeah,
So what will the Oscars look like on February 24th?
I'm going to edit myself.
Could be something like we've
You're
never
just
seen
talking
before.
about how these actors shouldn't have to edit what they said all those years ago. You're editing yourself.
I'm doing it for the good of the nation.
All right. Time now for some headlines for the nation. Julian joins us.
Sometimes I'd love to be up in here.
Right,
Yeah,
no,
right.
you
We
don't.
need the bubbles.
Very lonely.
Good morning, guys. We have some breaking news overnight. 5 Marines missing after a military plane crash, now declared dead. The rescue search ending nearly a week after 2 American warplanes collided during a training exercise off the coast of Japan. 2 Marines were recovered. Captain Jamar Sussard died in the crash. Another crew member was found and is in fair condition. The cause of the crash is under investigation. Several southeast states hit really hard by a deadly winter storm, waking up to plunging temperatures this morning. Many schools in North Carolina and Virginia are closed today. Heavy snow and ice proving to be too much for some buildings. Look at this gas station in North Carolina collapsing under the weight, and utility crews working through the night to restore power in the region. Over 70,000 customers remain in the dark. A Fox Business alert now. Stock futures are up this morning as we wait for the stock exchange to open. The positive outlook comes after a wild day of trading on Wall Street. This beer story is our next story, but I'll keep going. The Dow recovering after dropping more than 500 points, closing at more than 24,000 points. The S&P 500 ending the day with more than 2,600 points. NASDAQ closed at just over 7,000 points. And now to the beer story that everyone wants to know about. Ale and lager drinkers drink and think differently. That's according to a new poll conducted on behalf of a brewing company. It says lager drinkers are more goal-oriented and sociable, but also more stressed. Easygoing ale drinkers prefer spending nights at home. Both, however, are set in their ways, not changing their favorite beer in at least 4 years. So, there you have it.
That video did go, by the way, in the Wall Street story where they dropped 500 points and then people were drinking.
And then people were drinking because of that? Is that what you're saying?
That's probably.
Recession proof. Don't they say alcohol is recession proof? Like no matter where the economy is,
right?
Everyone will still drink.
The higher the proof if the economy's going down.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Right.
Now we know.
All right.
Thanks, Jillian.
Thank you.
After yesterday, tequila all around.
Meanwhile, the most famous Christian prayer in the world could be changed.
Tequila to Christian prayers.
Yes.
All because Pope Francis says there was a mistake in the translation. Franklin Graham here with reaction coming up in 15 minutes.
And the buzz is President Trump may pick David Bossie as the new chief of staff. That would be my choice. Would he want the job? We're going to ask him. And does he like the music with his introduction? We'll ask him that too. And we'll zoom out and go to. All right, David Bossie on the short list to be President Trump's next chief of staff. That's the talk. So let's bring in David Bossie right now, author of Trump's Enemies. He's also a Fox News contributor. David, what's your reaction?
Well, Brian, it's a humbling thing to even be on a list. Whether people take that list seriously or whether that's actually a serious list of people that the president's considering, I have no idea. But the folks on it are all friends of mine. The president is going to do an incredibly methodical job, just like he always does, in figuring out who best serves him and what the next 2 years looks like. And therefore, I know that the president's going to pick the right person no matter who it is.
Well, I will say this. One thing is there's a perfect chief of staff for every president. Do you feel as though you have had the chemistry with this president? You understand him in times of pressure and you understand the politics of it. Do you feel you have that chemistry?
Well, I've certainly known the president a long, long time. Long before he was a candidate, I've had the pleasure of knowing him. I do feel I understand the movement that elected him. And having been a conservative leader in this town for a long time, I have had my finger on the pulse. And Donald Trump carried the day. He got elected. He understood better than any Republican in 2015 and 16 what was going on, the movement in America. And he led it. And
Right.
so yes, do I understand this president? Absolutely. I understand his priorities, and I have been. And I've been trying to help him with those from the outside. There's no question about it.
And you're having lunch with him on Friday, right?
Well, you know what? Corey and I are having lunch with the president on Friday. That's Ben reported, yes.
Hey, okay, we'll confirm it. Would you confirm that what you'll be eating? No, just
look.
You're going to be there Friday.
It'll be something good.
All right, that'll be good. Now, David, have you ever persuaded the president to do something?
Look, you know, we were running, the president was a candidate when I worked for him and in the transition. The president was the principal and somebody that we all worked with. Look, we say in our first book about the campaign that the president was responsible for winning 99.9% was him. 0.01% was the staff, all of us together. And that's true. It was a team. It was a tremendous team, and we all worked cohesively together to help the president in the way, any way we could.
David, if you were offered the job Friday after lunch, if he says, Corey, can you leave the room? I need to speak to David. He says, I need you to be chief of staff. What would you say?
Well, first, it would be hard to get Corey out of the room.
I know that.
And secondly, I don't foresee that happening. But look, this president deserves somebody who's going to be totally committed to the future of what this next 2 years of his presidency is about. A political, legislative, and communication strategic person who can come in here and help him with his 2020 reelect, as well as somebody who will be able to handle what is this subpoena canon, somebody who's going to understand what the House is going to do to him and the White House staff in trying to drag them into a legal process and an investigative process that will slow down the success of this White House. Somebody who can stop that from happening.
And David, my hunch is you feel you're that guy, and that is on your resume. Back in a moment. David Bossie, thanks.
Time now for some Fox News headlines. First up, attorneys for Paul Manafort and special counsel Robert Mueller heading to court later today. They're meeting with a judge ahead of a meeting and hearing tomorrow. The president's former campaign chair is accused of breaching his plea agreement by lying to the feds and the FBI. Manafort's lawyers say he has been truthful since pleading guilty to financial crimes, among other things. And a judge will decide today if a Chinese tech executive should be let go on bail. Meng Wanzhou was arrested in Canada last week on behalf of the United States. The CFO of Huawei Technologies of China is accused of trying to evade U.S. sanctions on Iran. China is demanding that she be freed. Stay tuned. Ainsley.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Well, despite tough new immigration policies put into place by the Trump administration, the United States is still the top pick by far for migrants. The Gallup World Poll found that 158 million migrants want to move to the U.S. That is about 21% of all of those in the world that are seeking a new home. So how can we make sure immigration is done the right way, the legal way? Peter Lumaj is a Republican strategist and attorney born and raised in communist Albania, and he joins us now. Hey, Peter.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming back. All right, so tell us your story, first of all.
Well, people should understand that freedom and opportunity is an exception to the rule. And people are willing to do anything and everything to achieve that, to live in freedom and opportunity. What happened with my family about 30 years ago, my brothers and I decided to escape Albania over 30 years ago. And at that time, had we been caught trying to do that or doing it, we would have been executed. They picked up my parents, they took them to a concentration camp. My entire family was taken to an internment camp. My father was tortured to death just because we dared to escape communism. Just think about that. He was willing to sacrifice his life so his sons could live in freedom. And we found freedom and opportunity over here, and I'm not surprised. Well, we couldn't at that time because we grew up in a big family, 11 siblings, and my parents at that time, you just couldn't put this together without the government knowing that you're trying to escape.
So they tortured your dad when all of you left?
Absolutely, and he was willing to sacrifice his life so we could live in freedom. Think about this. I come to the United States, I learn English, I go to college, I become an attorney. I ran for governor in the state of Connecticut. I mean, the American dream is out there. We just have to do it right. That's all we have to do.
All right, so with so many people wanting to come to America, how do we allow them to come in but do it the right way?
Look, I think we have to have the right criteria for this. Background investigation, you have to be qualified to come to the United States. I don't believe that anybody should force themselves into the United States. What we're seeing right now on the southern border, actually, I do support the president. I did benefit from the immigration laws that we have over here. My family benefited from that, but we did it in the right way. And we expect people to do it in the right way, not to force themselves to come to the United States and violate our laws. What's missing right now with immigration is intent to become an American. People are coming to the United States to benefit or to take advantage of what we offer them. Years ago, there was an intent for people to come over here to become Americans. We're missing that part now, and I hope we're going to be able to, sort of revive that again so we attract the right people to come to the United States.
Do you like the idea of a wall? Because the president's sitting down with Nancy and Chuck.
I do. Absolutely, I do. Look, people are just tired of the prior administrations telling us that we're going to take care of this immigration mess that we have created. They created that, both the Republicans and the Democrats.
Well, now you have an administration that does want to do something about it, and Congress won't allow it.
I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to do it. The president, the current president, is the only one on whom people can depend at this point actually to resolve this mess that the prior administrations created.
How's your mom doing? Is she still alive?
She's still alive. She's an American citizen. She voted for the first time, actually, in 2016. Look, we're living the American dream, and I'm not surprised that so many people want to come to the United States. As a matter of fact, the beating that we have taken since 2016 with the media and the liberals and the world attacking us and everything that we do, accusing us of being sexist and racist and homophobes and xenophobes and all these things, and then all of a sudden, the majority of the world wants to come to the United States. That proves that we're still the envy of the world. And people outside see this. As outsiders, we do realize how great America is. And sometimes it bothers me when I see American-born citizens not recognizing the greatness of this nation.
This poll just shows you we are still a great country, aren't we? Yeah. Thank you so much, Peter. I'm glad your mom's okay and she's here.
Yes,
God bless you. Have a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
A part of the Lord's Prayer could soon change because Pope Francis says there is a mistake. Franklin Graham is here to discuss that coming up next.
He's got to sit there at the luggage carousel and wait for the guitars to come out and the drums.
So easy.
All right, some Christmas music, and now a very famous Christmas prayer, or Christian prayer, I should say, the Lord's Prayer. It could soon be changed after Pope Francis points out what he calls a significant mistake in the translation.
Wow. The change to the Lord's Prayer would switch out the line, lead us not into temptation, for abandon us not when in temptation.
So, is the Hail Mary next? Here to weigh in is the CEO of Samaritan's Purse and the Billy Graham's Evangelistic Association, Reverend Franklin Graham.
He laughed. It's hard to say.
Yeah, Reverend, what's going on? I mean, are we supposed to take the new verbiage or the old verbiage?
Well, listen, I'm not Catholic, but I understand they looked at this for about 16 years. The scholars have studied it, and there possibly could be a translation error with that one word. I don't know. I'm still going to say it the way that I memorized it as a boy, that my mother taught me. But the Pope, he might have a point here, so we'll see.
Yeah. So, Franklin, if the Catholic Church does decide to go ahead and change that particular passage, do you think other churches, other religions would do the same, follow the Catholics' lead?
I'm sure there would be some others that would certainly consider it and study this issue. You have to be very careful when you change the Word of God. We do recognize that there are translation errors, and there's a lot of translations out there in the English language, and some of them vary a little bit, but you have to be very, very careful. And I know the Catholics have been very careful as they've studied this for 16 years, and they're just not doing this haphazardly. They put a lot of thought and a lot of study into it. So it is an interesting point.
It is, isn't it? Because God can allow temptation, but isn't it Satan that leads you into temptation?
Well, that would be my view, no question. And I think we do pray that the Lord would protect us from temptation. and that we would not be led in temptation. But we have to understand that there is an evil one out there. There is a devil who wants to destroy your life and my life, and he'll do everything he can to put us into temptation and destroy our lives. And the Bible says we've all sinned, and Franklin Graham is a sinner. But God, of course, we're at Christmas, and we're celebrating Jesus Christ's birth. But he came to this world for the purpose of dying on a cross to save us from our sins. And if we're willing to believe in him and trust him, God will forgive us of our sins if we turn from those sins. That's what we have to understand. There is an evil one out there who wants to destroy you and me and every one of us. And we want to avoid temptation. And the Bible tells us that we are to flee temptation. Some people like to get real close to the lion and dabble in it. I tell you, just run, because the devil wants to destroy you.
I hear you. Meanwhile, let's talk about something great that we all can agree on. Operation Christmas Child is celebrating its 25th anniversary. You got more than 157 million shoe boxes have been sent since 1993. And I understand you're on pace to match last year's 11 million distribution, right?
We are, and I brought one with me. And these are boxes that are filled by families across the country and around the world, and filled with toys. Now this has got a stuffed animal in it, a little bear. That's kind of nice. I like that. It's got a soccer ball in it, and plus the pump. That's kind of cool. I got a yo-yo. That's kind of fun. We got pens. We got some paper. And you think a pen and pencils, is that a big deal? Most kids around the world have none of this. And to be able to give a pen and a pencil and some paper and some toys, but more importantly, I want these children to know that God loves them and cares for them, and he hasn't forgotten them. Many of these children live in refugee camps, or they live in places like dumps. Can you imagine a city dump filled with children going through the trash looking for something to eat? We go to places like that with these boxes. So every box, we ask people to pray before you pack your box. Pray for the child who's going to get that box. And if we know God hears the answer, here's one prayer. Can you imagine 11 million people praying for children? God God's going to hear those prayers, and is going to be able to touch the lives of many children. And it's not too late to do a box. We need all the boxes we could get. And a person can go to our website, SamaritansPurse.org, and you can build a box online. And that is really cool. I mean, the graphics are great. And you can also track your box. You can see where your box goes. We've got a barcode. And you can actually track and see which country the box goes. So it's really a lot of fun. And we need all the boxes we can get. So, but remember, as you pack a box, pray for the child that's going to get that box.
And you can
God
build
will
a
just touch
box
their
without
hearts.
even going to the store. You just build it right there on your website?
You can do it on your website. And we got people here who will put it together for you.
All right, good. We'll do it now while we toss it over to Jillian for headlines. Thank you so much. God bless you, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. God bless you all.
All right, go get him.
All right.
Go get them.
21.
I want to say to all a good night.
Go get some more boxes.
Right. All right. I'm gonna build a box right now. Jillian, do you mind if I do that while you
do that while I tell you about this, because this is a crazy story. A potential terror attack was stopped in Ohio. Elizabeth Lacron arrested after buying 2 pounds of gunpowder allegedly to make a bomb. The FBI says she glorified Charleston church shooter Dylan Roof and flew to Denver to visit the site of the Columbine school shooting. Police say she had an AK-47 and wrote in her journal about committing an upscale mass murder. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi considering a new tactic to take back the gavel. According to Politico, Pelosi and a group of House Democrats are discussing a term limits deal that would cap her time as Speaker to a maximum of 4 years. Republicans have had a 3-term limit for their chairs since 1992. The deal could help Pelosi win votes to become Speaker when the new Congress begins. Levi's and Google's Smart Jacket is getting smarter. The high-tech trucker jacket can now alert you if you leave your phone behind. An automatic alert will go off if the jacket moves too far away from your phone. The phone will get a notification, and the jacket's sleeve tag will blink and vibrate. The jacket costs $350. I'm really behind because I didn't even know that was a thing.
Well, it is now.
It is now.
That's why we call it the news. Now we do know. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jillian.
Out on the streets of New York City, I got a feeling Janice has got a whole bunch of people out there with her.
Yes! Are we waving? Are we waving?
I can't even say. Oh, there you are.
How's it going? Little delayed reaction. Are you guys having fun? Yeah! Oh my God, we have an anniversary. What's this? This is a picture of Steve Ducey?
Yes, from Indianapolis.
Wow, and you guys are celebrating an anniversary?
51 years.
What is the secret to one?
Patience and perseverance.
I love it. Thank you guys all for coming. You love Fox and Friends? Yeah! All right, then you qualify to be here. Let's take a look at the maps real quick. It's cold outside, but we're warm here outside with all the love. It's 30 degrees right now in New York City. With the wind chill, it feels colder than that. But look at Dallas, 36 right now, 24 in Memphis, 28 in Raleigh. So yes, that cold air mass has settled in. Unfortunately, it's still really cold across North Carolina. So that snow that they got over the weekend, that's not going anywhere. Our next system is going to move across the northwest, and along with that, some energy from the Gulf Coast, and bring our next storm system we're going to watch over the next couple of days. Merry Christmas, everybody! All right, wave to Steve, Ainsley, and Brian.
Wow, you are a rock star. Janice Dean, we never had crowds like this. Great job.
All right, thanks, Janice.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Janice.
Folks.
All right, 18 minutes before the top of the hour. Another promise kept by President Trump.
American energy dominance, and we're going to be an exporter.
Yeah, there you go. The U.S. now exporting more oil than it brings in for the first time in 75 years. Our next guest is the former CEO of Gulf Oil, and he says the boom won't stop anytime soon.
Plus, it's a Christmas tradition. One of the goals of President Trump's administration is to push towards U.S. energy dominance.
My administration will seek not only the American energy independence that we've been looking for so long, but American energy dominance, and we're going to be an exporter.
Well, for the first time in 75 years, the United States exported more oil than it imported last week. So is this a sign we're moving closer to energy independence? Here with reaction, former CEO of Gulf Oil, Joe Piotrowski, joining us from Massachusetts. Joe, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You bet. How are we doing it?
Listen, the United States, you have to give the almighty great benefit that we, in fact, have more reserves of both oil, condensate, and natural gas than any country in the world. But we've unleashed American ingenuity.
Right.
Now, a lot has to go to our engineer and scientists, but the policy under the Trump administration has been instrumental in getting us not only energy independent, which you can define several ways, but we're energy dominant in that we're now the largest producer, and should prices spike, which I do not believe they will, I think they're going to drift lower. The U.S. has the capability to go from 11 million barrels a day production to 15 and even 20.
Well, that sounds terrific. Of course, a lot of this has to do with shale, and that was a process that really wasn't used much a decade ago, but now that's really helped us turn the corner, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It is. And when we start converting some of our transport vehicles to natural gas, you will see even lower prices, more stable energy markets, and lower oil prices worldwide. Because, I mean, we dominate in oil, but natural gas, we are really dominant.
We are indeed. And of course, it all means lower prices for us. Joe, thank you very much for joining us today from Massachusetts.
Thank you.
All right. All right. It is 12 minutes before the top of the hour. Up next.
It's that time of year to spread a little extra cheer.
And who better to lift our spirits than one of our favorite Christmas crooners?
That's right. Joining us right now here at Fox and Friends, the one and only Steve Amerson. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Man, you have been so busy.
It's been a busy week. Well, December's always busy, but I was in D.C. last week, and after this, I'm heading to Las Vegas. I want to sing for the National Finals Rodeo tomorrow night.
Wow.
So last week, my wife and I were invited to the Pence's residence in D.C.
And he remembered you from?
Well, I met them 25 years ago, And so my wife and I are there at the party, just as invited guests, and Mrs. Pence walks over and says, "Steve, you need to sing something for our guests." So
you can't say no to her, can you?
Yeah, what do you say?
Right.
By the way,
No?
just to plug Fox Nation, I took an exclusive tour behind the scenes and saw what only Steve has seen, the inside the Vice President's residence.
The Naval Observatory.
It's a lovely place. So it's a great time of year, and I love spreading cheer.
All right, let's do some of that right now. What are you going to sing for us?
I'm going to sing a song called Mary, Did You Know?
Oh, so touching.
We love
it.
this one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Amerson.